All right, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering the absolutely mind-blowing science of why your digestive system is actually your body's highly intelligent first brain. For decades, we've thought of the brain up in our skulls as the absolute command center, right? But cutting-edge science is painting a totally different picture. We're going to explore why your stomach actually acts completely on its own, and how what happens down in your gut literally dictates your mood, your daily decisions, and even your long-term mental health. So, have you ever gotten a stomachache right before a big test or a major presentation? We've all felt those nervous butterflies for sure. But for decades, patients suffering from really intense, chronic stomach pain, especially folks with irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, were completely dismissed. They were told their symptoms were just an excuse. Doctors, teachers, and even bosses often thought it was entirely in their heads. Just a side effect of overthinking, or maybe a convenient excuse to get out of responsibilities.
But here's what's truly staggering. Look at this. 40.1% of the global population suffers from some form of gastrointestinal symptom. Think about that for a second. That is literally 4 out of every 10 people on Earth, and about 10% specifically suffer from IBS. So this proves that this is a massive, tangible reality. It's definitely not some illusion. And honestly, the sheer volume of people dealing with this is exactly what drove scientists to finally dig deeper into the actual physical mechanisms at play.
Section 1. The stress hormone connection, proving the pain is physical.
To figure out the exact moment psychological stress attacks the gut, researchers use this incredibly clever, but let's be honest, totally frustrating experiment called the mirror drawing stress test. Basically, they ask subjects to trace a star shape, but they could only look at their hand through a mirror. So your brain expects your hand to move one way, but the mirror reverses it. It causes instant mental friction. Now, for a healthy person, this caused minor annoyance and barely any changes in the gut. But for an IBS patient, just the mental frustration of this test triggered severe abdominal pain, explosive colon contractions, and overactive stress signals in the brain. We're talking about gut spasms that lasted for up to 2 hours.
Scientists actually trace this exact reaction back to a specific stress hormone called CRH. That stands for corticotropin-releasing hormone, and it's secreted in our brains when we feel stressed. They did a test where they injected a microscopic amount of this hormone directly into the bloodstream. In a healthy person's stress response, the gut just kind of twitches a little bit. But in an IBS patient, the gut goes into violent, immediate overdrive. It's literal biological proof that the brain is directly and chemically communicating with the gut.
And to put into perspective just how intensely real this pain is, during this hormonal stress response, the pressure inside an IBS patient's colon can actually skyrocket to 300 millimeters of mercury. To put that into context, normal human blood pressure is roughly around 100 to 120. That means the pressure inside their intestines is nearly triple normal blood pressure. It's a massive, intense physical muscle contraction. It completely validates that this agony is never ever just in someone's head.
Moving on to Section 2. Meet your first brain, the evolutionary senior to your mind.
To really understand why our stomachs react so violently to our thoughts, we have to rewind and look at our evolutionary history. Experts point out this really profound truth: the gut is actually the senior to the brain. It's the organ that was created first. Evolutionarily speaking, primitive multicellular organisms developed a digestive tube way before they ever developed a central brain or a spinal cord. The gut was basically the fundamental sensory hardware that kept early life alive. It processed the environment, absorbed nutrients, and made split-second survival decisions millions of years before humans even walked the earth.
This deep evolutionary link brings us to a condition called visceral hypersensitivity. This is basically a state where the brain and the gut's sensory pathways become overly attuned to pain. So essentially, an IBS patient's internal sensors are wound up so tightly and are so highly sensitive that totally normal everyday digestive processes register in the brain as severe threats and agonizing pain. The gut is really just trying to protect the body, but its evolutionary alarm system is turned up way too loud.
Okay, Section 3. Microbes and mental health. Who is really pulling the strings? So, it turns out your mood isn't just created up in your head. The gut bacteria living inside you are literally manufacturing the essential chemical precursors, like the actual building blocks for your brain's neurotransmitters. We're talking about things like dopamine and serotonin, which are our primary happiness and motivation chemicals. If your gut flora doesn't make these materials, well, your brain simply doesn't have the fuel it needs to function properly.
And the impacts of this are absolutely profound. If your microbiome is out of balance, you're going to lack those essential neurotransmitters. In fact, researchers have found that a lack of a specific bacteria called Coprococcus is heavily linked to depression. Not only that, but severe constipation is often one of the very first early warning symptoms of Parkinson's disease, showing up well before any motor tremors actually begin. Scientists are even studying how gut imbalances act as a major risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So our mental decline might literally start all the way down in our stomachs.
Section 4. Sleep your gut clean. The overnight housekeeping action.
Knowing how absolutely vital this gastro-supercomputer is to our mental and physical health, we obviously need to maintain it properly. And the real magic here happens when you sleep. While you're asleep and in a fasting state, your empty gut initiates what researchers call a housekeeping action, sometimes called phase 3 contractions. Roughly every 90 minutes, your gut creates this series of massive, rhythmic, sweeping waves that clean out residual food and bacteria. It literally sweeps the whole system clean, completely resetting your digestion for a healthy morning bowel movement.
But here is the catch. If you eat late at night, you completely halt this self-cleaning cycle. Having food in your stomach tells the brain to stop those housekeeping sweeps, and that leads to abnormal bacterial fermentation overnight, excess gas, and that heavy, gross, sluggish feeling you get the next morning. Your gut literally didn't get to do its overnight deep clean, and trust me, your brain is going to feel it the next day.
Which brings us to Section 5, Fueling Your First Brain. Actionable steps for gut homeostasis.
To support your gut homeostasis, achieving that perfect internal balance, experts recommend a few key things. First, try to eat dinner early. That allows the 90-minute overnight gut cleaning cycle to actually do its job. Second, consume more soluble fibers. Things like seaweed, mazuku, or even just switching from white rice to unpolished brown rice can make a huge difference. And finally, for folks dealing with severe gut-brain loops like chronic IBS, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT is highly recommended. People often start avoiding normal activities, like taking the morning train out of fear of getting a stomachache, and that just creates a negative stress loop. CBT actually trains the brain to calm down those overactive stress signals shooting down into the stomach.
And when we look at global data, the real-world results of these dietary habits become incredibly clear. Regions in East Asia with traditional diets naturally rich in these exact soluble fibers and fermented foods have notably lower rates of severe gut issues, like IBS, compared to Western countries. The data clearly shows that feeding your gut the right materials massively reduces systemic inflammation and stress across entire populations.
So the biggest takeaway from this explainer is that your gut is a highly autonomous, incredibly intelligent sensory organ. It dictates your daily mood, your behavior, and your long-term health. It was here way before your conscious brain, and it's constantly talking to it, pulling the strings on everything from your daily stress levels to your overall happiness. So next time you have a gut feeling, will you listen to your first brain? Thanks so much for joining me today, and I really hope this completely changes how you view and feed your amazing body.